I was half asleep when someone knocked on my door. Not the polite kind. Not the neighbor kind. This was desperate. Urgent. Like whoever stood on the other side had nowhere else to go. I checked my phone. 12:47 a.m. No messages. No missed calls. I almost ignored it. Almost. Then the knock came again, harder this time. My heart thudded as I pulled on a hoodie and walked toward the door. I live alone. Quiet neighborhood. Nothing ever happens here. And yet, something in my chest told me this night wasn't normal. I opened the door. And my entire world shifted. She stood there in the glow of my porch light. Evelyn Carter. My CEO. Still wearing a wedding dress. Not a cheap one. The kind that probably cost more than my car. Her hair was messy, makeup smudged, eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. In one hand, she clutched her heels. In the other, a small overnight bag. She looked at me like I was the last safe place left on earth. For a full 10 seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered my name. Daniel. My throat went dry. Evelyn? What are you doing here? She exhaled shakily. I canceled the wedding. The words hit me harder than any punch ever could. I stepped aside without thinking. She walked in. And just like that, my quiet life ended. Everyone at the office knew today was her wedding. The entire executive floor had been buzzing for weeks, flowers arriving, meetings rescheduled, assistants whispering. Evelyn Carter was marrying Michael Harrington. Billionaire. Board member. Perfect match on paper. And none of us were invited. I wasn't surprised. I was her operations director, not her friend. At least, that's what we pretended. Truth was, I'd worked directly under her for 3 years. Late nights. High-pressure deals. Crisis meetings at 2 a.m. We trusted each other with everything except emotions. She was brilliant. Cold in meetings. Warm in private moments no one else saw. And dangerously beautiful. But she was my boss. And now she was supposed to be someone else's wife. I stayed late at the office that evening, finishing reports. Around 7 p.m., I checked my email. One message stood out. From Evelyn Carter. Subject, thank you. That was it. No body text. Just those 2 words. Thank you. I stared at the screen for a long time before closing my laptop. I had no idea it was goodbye. Evelyn stood in my living room like she didn't recognize it. Or herself. She looked around slowly, then sat on my couch, shoulders collapsing as if the weight of the world finally crushed her. I locked the door. Evelyn, you're shaking. I know. Her voice cracked. I grabbed a blanket and draped it over her shoulders. The wedding dress was thin. She must have been freezing. You should be with your family, I said softly. Or. I couldn't go anywhere else. She looked up at me then. And God help me. I saw fear. Not the confident CEO who shut down boardrooms. A woman terrified she'd just destroyed her life. Why me? I asked. She swallowed. Because you're the only man who's never wanted anything from me. That wasn't true. I wanted everything. I just never let myself admit it. She rubbed her hands together, staring at the floor. When I was standing at the altar, she said, everyone was smiling. Cameras. Music. Michael looked so sure. Her voice dropped. And I felt like I was suffocating. I sat across from her. I kept thinking, if I marry him, this is it. This is my life forever. She laughed bitterly. And all I could think about was you. My heart slammed into my ribs. Daniel. I tried to ignore it. For years. I didn't interrupt. Didn't dare breathe. You were there during the merger crisis. When my father died. When the board almost forced me out. Her eyes filled. You saw me at my worst. And you stayed. She finally looked at me. And tonight. I realized I was about to marry the wrong man. Silence stretched between us. Then she stood up. Took one step toward me. And said the words that would change everything. I came here to say I love you. For a moment, the world stopped. I came here to say I love you. Those words hung in the air like a loaded gun. I didn't move. Didn't speak. Because if I did, everything would break. Evelyn stood inches from me, still in her wedding dress, still trembling, eyes searching my face like she was afraid I might disappear if she blinked. You don't have to say anything, she whispered quickly. I just needed you to know. I exhaled slowly. Evelyn, you're emotional. Tonight was chaos. You canceled a wedding. That kind of shock. She shook her head. No. Don't do that. Don't turn this into logic. She stepped closer. I've run companies worth billions. I know the difference between fear and truth. Her voice softened. This feeling didn't start tonight. I swallowed. It started years ago. There was a night, 2 years ago. A deal had collapsed. Millions lost. The board was furious. She stayed in her office past midnight, staring at spreadsheets like they were enemies. I knocked. She didn't look up. Come in, Daniel. Close the door. Her voice was exhausted. I brought her coffee. She laughed softly. You always remember. That night, she broke. Cried quietly at her desk. And without thinking, I hugged her. She held on longer than she should have. When she pulled back, her face was inches from mine. Her breath caught. Mine did too. For half a second, just half, we almost kissed. Then she stepped back. Thank you, she said professionally. And the wall went up again. I never forgot that moment. Apparently, neither did she. You never looked at me like Michael did, she said now. Like I was something to own. I clenched my jaw. That's because I respect you. And I love you for it. Her hand reached for mine. I didn't pull away. That was my mistake. Or maybe my salvation. Her fingers were cold. You should stay the night, I said quietly. Just sleep. Tomorrow, we'll figure this out. She nodded, but her eyes stayed on mine. I don't want to be alone. I showed her the guest room. She stood at the doorway, hesitating. Daniel? Yes? What if tomorrow? I still feel the same. My chest tightened. Then we'll face it. She smiled sadly. Together? I nodded. Together. I didn't sleep. At 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then another. Then another. Finally, a text. Michael Harrington. Where is Evelyn? My stomach dropped. At 7 a.m., the news broke. CEO Evelyn Carter cancels wedding hours before ceremony. Social media exploded. Stock futures dipped. My phone rang again. This time, it was HR. Daniel, the woman said carefully, the board is calling an emergency meeting. They want Evelyn. And me? A pause. They asked if you were with her. I looked down the hallway toward the guest room door. Still closed. Yes, I said. I am. Evelyn walked out minutes later. No makeup. Hair tied loosely. Wearing one of my shirts. Seeing her like that, soft, real, did something dangerous to me. She saw my face. The board knows, she said. Yes. She nodded. So does Michael. She took a breath. Daniel, today, everything burns. I stepped closer. Then we don't lie. Her eyes searched mine. Even if it costs me my company? I answered without hesitation. Even then. Something shifted in her expression. Like a decision locking into place. She reached up. Touched my face. And this time. I didn't stop her. The kiss didn't happen gently. It wasn't soft or unsure. It was desperate. Like two people who had been holding their breath for years, and finally exhaled. For 1 second, I forgot everything. The board. The company. The man she left at the altar. Then reality came crashing back. I pulled away first. Evelyn, if we do this, there's no going back. She didn't look scared. She looked relieved. I already burned the bridge, she said quietly. I'm just choosing where to stand now. The knock came at 9:03 a.m. Not frantic like last night. Controlled. Confident. I opened the door. Michael Harrington stood there in a tailored suit, eyes sharp, jaw tight. He looked like a man who'd never been told no, until now. So, he said calmly, stepping inside without permission, this is where you ran. Evelyn didn't flinch. This is where I chose, she corrected. His gaze snapped to me. And you are? I met his eyes. The reason she didn't marry you. Silence. Then he laughed. A cold, humorless sound. You threw away $1 billion future, he said to her, for your employee? She stepped forward. For the only man who ever saw me as human. Michael's smile vanished. You think the board will let this stand? He asked. You think shareholders won't destroy you? She straightened. Let them try. He turned to me one last time. You have no idea what you just stepped into. Then he left. The door slammed. And just like that, the war began. By noon, the office was chaos. Whispers followed me down every hallway. Emails stopped copying me. Meetings were cancelled, then rescheduled without me. At 1:17 p.m., Evelyn was summoned to the boardroom. She squeezed my hand before walking in. No matter what happens, she said softly, I don't regret last night. The doors closed. 30 minutes passed. Then 60. At 90 minutes, HR called me in. The board chair didn't waste time. Daniel, he said, did you have an inappropriate relationship with the CEO? I chose my words carefully. I fell in love with her. Quietly. Respectfully. Long before last night. A murmur went around the table. One man leaned forward. Were you involved before the wedding? No. After? Yes. Evelyn spoke then. And that's on me. She stood. If someone must step down, she said firmly, it will be me. My heart stopped. You can't, I started. She looked at me. And smiled. I finally get to choose. By evening, the decision was made. Evelyn Carter would temporarily step down as CEO. Public statement, personal reasons. Stock stabilized. Scandal contained. But the price was high. We walked out of the building together. No assistants. No security. Just us. In the parking lot, she stopped. I lost everything I worked for, she said. I shook my head. No. You let go of something that was killing you. She looked at me, eyes shining. And you? I took her hands. I'd lose my job 1,000 times for this. She laughed through tears. Then she kissed me again. This time. In the open. With the world watching. The silence after power is louder than any boardroom. No assistants knocking. No calendar alerts. No security detail waiting downstairs. Evelyn stood in my kitchen that evening, staring at her phone like it might bite her. They took my access, she said softly. Emails. Systems. Everything. I poured her a glass of water. Sit. She did. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked small. I spent my whole life proving I belonged in rooms full of men who wanted to control me, she said. And now I don't even know who I am without that title. I knelt in front of her. You're Evelyn. That didn't come from a job. Her eyes filled. She leaned forward. Rested her forehead against mine. Stay with me tonight, she whispered. Not as my employee. Not as my savior. As what? I asked. She looked up. As the man I chose. That night wasn't rushed. It was careful. Tender. Two people relearning how to be human. Her wedding dress lay folded in the corner, forgotten. She wore my t-shirt again. We talked for hours. About her childhood. About my fear of being invisible. About the future neither of us had planned. When she kissed me this time, it was slow. Intentional. No fear. And when we finally lay together, it felt less like passion. And more like coming home. The next morning, the headlines were brutal. Fallen CEO's affair exposed. Power, betrayal, and a midnight escape. My phone lit up with messages. Friends asking if I was crazy. Former colleagues warning me to stay quiet. A lawyer advising me to protect myself. Evelyn read everything. Didn't cry. Just went still. This is my punishment, she said. For choosing myself. I shook my head. No. This is the price of honesty. She smiled weakly. Then I hope it's worth it. That afternoon, a letter arrived. Not an email. A letter. From Michael. He was suing. Claiming emotional damages. Claiming breach of fiduciary trust. Claiming I manipulated her. Evelyn read it once. Then tore it in half. Let him try, she said. But I saw the fear in her eyes. That night, she didn't sleep. She paced. At 2:30 a.m., she finally broke. What if I ruined your life, she whispered. I pulled her close. You didn't ruin it. She looked up. You changed it. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Daniel, a calm voice said. This is the chair of Horizon Capital. My heart raced. We're starting something new, he continued. Clean slate. New leadership. I swallowed. And Evelyn? A pause. We'd like her to lead it. I looked at her across the room. She was watching me. Hope and fear fighting in her eyes. But there's a condition, the man added. She can't have you involved. I didn't hear from her. No texts. No calls. No news. On the fourth morning, my phone buzzed. Breaking news notification. Evelyn Carter declines CEO offer, launches independent venture. My heart stopped. I refreshed. Another headline. Former CEO chooses personal freedom over corporate control. Then my doorbell rang. I opened it. Evelyn stood there. Not in a power suit. Not in my t-shirt. But in jeans. Simple blouse. No armor. I didn't take the job, she said. I couldn't speak. I realized something, she continued. If success costs me love, it's not success. She stepped closer. I don't want a life where I win everything and lose myself. Her voice cracked. I choose you. We didn't celebrate that night. No champagne. No dramatic speeches. Just silence. The good kind. Evelyn sat on the floor of my living room, back against the couch, laptop open, scribbling ideas in a notebook like a college student starting over. What are you thinking? I asked. She smiled faintly. For the first time in my life? I sat beside her. I don't know. And somehow, that was enough. The next few months humbled us. No assistants. No corporate cars. No invitations. Just early mornings, cheap coffee, and a tiny rented office with peeling paint and a stubborn printer that jammed every 10 pages. Evelyn named the company True North. Because I lost my direction once, she said. I don't plan to again. She worked harder than I'd ever seen. Not to prove something. But because she loved it. And I wasn't her employee anymore. I was her partner. Michael didn't go quietly. The lawsuit came. Ugly. Public. Personal. He painted Evelyn as reckless. Me as manipulation. For weeks, the media circled like vultures. One night, Evelyn broke down again. What if he wins, she whispered. What if he takes everything again? I held her face. Then we rebuild again. She searched my eyes. You're not afraid? I smiled. I already lost everything once. The judge dismissed the case 2 months later. Insufficient evidence. Michael disappeared from the headlines soon after. Power doesn't survive without control. A year later, on a Sunday morning, Evelyn stood in our kitchen making pancakes. Badly. I watched her burn the first batch and laugh instead of panic. You know, she said casually. I almost married the wrong man because I thought stability meant safety. I walked up behind her. Wrapped my arms around her. And now? She leaned back into me. Now I know safety feels like this. We never had a huge ceremony. No press. No gowns. Just a courthouse, 2 witnesses, and a quiet park afterward. She didn't change her last name. I didn't care. Titles never mattered to us. That night, as we sat on a bench watching the city lights, she rested her head on my shoulder. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For not loving the version of me that the world created. I kissed her forehead. I loved the woman who knocked on my door at midnight. Years later, people would still ask her. Do you regret leaving it all behind? She always smiled the same way before answering. No. Because success didn't save her. Love did. And sometimes, the bravest thing a powerful woman can do is choose to be human.